Here we go, episode 144 of The Hardline. Michael Merlo, John Michael Masiri, here with you. A very exciting week 4 with so much to talk about. A couple of injuries, some news off the field. JM, so much to get to after an exciting week of football.
Dude, football's the last thing on your mind right now. Are you kidding me? Look at the hat
Yeah!
he's got on. He's in his good mood. The Mets, man. How about the Mets?
Shout out Mets.
What a job that is.
Before we start, shout out Mets.
Game of the year. Game of the year, Mike.
Can't believe it. But we are here to talk football. It was a very exciting week 4. The Giants, nothing on Thursday night. Not nothing, but, a tough one on Thursday night. You had the Jets have their debacle at home. We're going to get to all of that. But we are going to start with what was easily pregame the game of the week. And that was the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Buffalo Bills. That game was a shellacking. Mm-hmm. And, we talked about it on the gambling show. We both liked Baltimore in the game. We both didn't have Baltimore in our stars there. We probably should have. Baltimore ended up being my biggest bet of the year. Yeah. Partly because I lost so much on Sunday, but, I really liked Baltimore in that game. But we both picked them on the show.
So we put it out there. That's good.
Jam, it felt like one of those Sunday night football Baltimore has, a good opponent, AFC opponent. How many times have they beaten the Chiefs or the Patriots with Tom Brady at home on Sunday night? I feel like it's happened a lot, and they do the same to a really good Buffalo Bills team.
Yeah, and it sort of had the feel of we say these teams have struggles like the Baltimore Ravens, but when they were both going up against each other, it was okay. These teams deserve to be here. Prime time, the Ravens have had their struggles, but they're still going to be the Ravens, and this is going to be a really good game. And it actually wasn't a really good game. For the Ravens, it was. But, there's two ways we could go about this. We could say, is this more the Bills crashing back down to earth? Is this more the Ravens showing that they're, still one of the top dogs in the AFC? I think it's both.
Yeah, I think it was the Ravens coming out party here. Yeah. I do. I think this was finally okay, this is the Ravens team we know. That's a tough place for Buffalo to go and play. So I'm not too worried about what Buffalo showed last week. They were kind of due for, they were due for a bad game. They were. And that was the best opponent they had played all season long. And again, I don't think it's brought up enough how tough of a place it is to go play in Baltimore, especially that crowd. Maybe we had the TV volume on the soundbar really loud, but I felt like that crowd played a factor last night. They were loud. Right. That was a loud crowd in Baltimore last night, so give them credit. The fans showed up. Harbaugh, I can't believe Harbaugh's been there 17 years.
He's been there really 17
years.
Holy
he's
crap.
The longest tenured coach outside of Tomlin. He's only a year behind Tomlin.
Wow.
Which I would have never guessed.
That's absurd. I would have never guessed that either. 17 years. That means 2007. Wow. 2007 was 17 years ago. That's sad.
That's a little sad.
Mike, that was just an old school. That's how the Ravens want to win every football game. That is how we envisioned this team when they signed Derrick Henry this offseason. Winning football games was dominating on the ground, maybe having a little bit more relevancy in the passing game, but dominating on the ground, Derrick Henry being a workhorse, and then playing stifling defense, and that's exactly what they did. Listen, their defense was kind of, you felt like they were playing better than what was actually showing up in the box score. And finally, last night against, one of the best, if not the best offense in football in the Buffalo Bills.
Coming into the game yesterday was.
Yeah, and they just completely shut them down. One of the Bills' biggest things is how they have just been beating up on man coverage. They have just been absolutely abusing man coverage. Ravens played a little bit more man coverage last night. Josh Allen was 4 for 10 against man coverage. So that speaks volumes to the coverage and that the Ravens secondary had. And if I may add a little bit of let's make this a little spicy. Maybe the Bills missed Stephon Diggs a little bit last night, because what that tells me is these receivers ain't exactly getting the separation.
They might have. The one thing I'll say, I want to kind of call out Sean McDermott here. He had a couple of questionable calls yesterday in terms of going for it. Early in the game, he's aggressive. He's going for those fourth downs. And then they were down, I think, 21-10 or something like that. It was a 4th and 3 from his own 39. He had went for it earlier in the game. He decides to punt it away. It felt at the time you're giving the ball back to the Ravens the way they were playing. They were going to go down the field and score. They ended up having the fumble, but they were driving on them. So tough game for McDermott. I would have been a little bit more aggressive, just knowing your defense really didn't have answers for Henry, who, he showed up against Dallas and played very well. But last night, again, another game where they basically won on the back of him having that 1-2 punch, having both of those guys as a threat in Lamar and then Henry. I mean, that is such a weapon. And, we weren't the biggest fans of Henry signing there, but I think it's fair to say right now, we would have probably guessed that Saquon would have had the biggest impact in terms of a free agent signing on the offensive side of the ball. I think it's been Henry through these 2 weeks to basically save the season for the Baltimore Ravens.
It's a toss-up. I mean, Saquon's been humongously impactful for the Eagles. I mean, he's having the best year of his career practically so far. The thing about the Ravens offense that's just truly incredible is the amount of two-back sets that they're running right now, and the way that Justice Hill is almost like the number 2 weapon in this offense at this point is nuts. I mean, they're using Zay Flowers sort of in like yesterday I felt like it was like a Jameson Williams kind of a role. Like he's running downfield, stretching out the defense, and allowing, open field for Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. I mean, we've talked about Mark Andrews from a fantasy standpoint, from a football player standpoint. Not sure if he's, just washed up now, or the Ravens just don't feel the need to use him as much in years past.
Unreal.
Or what's going on.
And then, of course, like he's wide open and he drops that pass. You start him in fantasy? Or
I did not know. Zach Ertz got the start this week. Yeah.
Okay, so you figured out your tight end room.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my team's, we put up like 95 this week. We're doing good.
Yeah.
But the thing that's odd too is Likely was the one that emerged week 1, and it was like, do we have problems with Mark Andrews, and is Isaiah Likely going to be the featured tight end now? Likely hasn't even been doing anything anyways. So it's just a lot of production out of the running back room. It's just obviously run is what the Ravens are trying to do, but even in the passing game, I mean, they're not really looking for the tight ends. It seems like they're using the tight ends more for blocking and letting Lamar throw to Justice Hill and Zay Flowers.
It really hasn't made sense to me why they haven't, I think, really prioritized going to get that number 1 receiver, especially now. I mean, if they don't go and get that in the offseason, if that ends up being their undoing, not being able to throw the ball effectively down the field because we're throwing to Nelson Aguilar when we really need it, I mean, they have to go get a number 1.
Think about all the guys that they've gone through. The receivers, Willie Snead and Sammy Watkins,
trying to make things work.
Odell and Bateman and Aguilar, and there's just.
We're going to talk about the Chiefs coming up, and wide receivers are going to become a topic of conversation there in terms of who they should trade for. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you have to. I mean, a couple of the names in division, but like, wouldn't you consider that? I mean,
you have to.
You have to view your window as not closing, but Lamar's not getting any younger. Mm-hmm. And if you really trust this team and trust this coach, you got to go make a move.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see, but I'm not too worried with Buffalo after last night. I think Buffalo's just going to be just fine.
They were due for some. I mean, I don't think any of us were expecting them to lose by 3 touchdowns, but they were due for some sort of regression to the mean.
Where do you see Baltimore right now in terms of the AFC? Like, rank them against the Chiefs and the Bills.
I mean, I know this is a little nuts, but I'm still going to put the Bills over them. We know the way football works. Just because one team beats a team on a given day, it doesn't mean that they're exactly the better team.
I still think Buffalo's the best team in the AFC.
So I'm still gonna put Buffalo over them. I'm gonna keep the Chiefs at the top of the mountain. I mean, they don't look like the dominant Chiefs. They're still 4-0, and they're coming off back-to-back Super Bowls. So I'm gonna have the Chiefs ahead of them. I'm gonna have the Bills ahead of them, and then after that, I mean, it's basically just open. I mean, the Texans. They're off to a good start, but they're not exactly looking like, I'd put my money on them to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That division is just weak, and you're like, all right, yeah, I'll pick them out of anybody. But besides that, I mean, I'm going to put them as the best team in their division. I'm not going to put Pittsburgh over them, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. I'm not going to put Cincinnati, obviously, after their 1-3 start. I'm not going to put the Jets. No, I'll put them as the third best team in the AFC right now.
Yeah, I'm struggling between third, and fourth at the moment. I agree. I think Buffalo's 1. I think Kansas City's 2, just based on what we've seen so far. Wow. And I don't know. I kind of want to put Houston there because Houston's done a good job, and C.J. Stroud has played well. He had a good game yesterday. I didn't realize how well he played in the loss. We are going to talk about the Jags and the Texans. I didn't realize how well he played in the game. So very interesting there. But I guess I'll say they're 3. The way they looked last night, it's really tough to not put them 3. They were dominant last night.
Yeah.
Dominant.
They were.
Mike, you want to move on to the Chiefs here?
Yes, we can.
Chiefs. Not a good run. Not a good run last night. I mean, they basically escape with the win in LA. But I don't want to sit here and say I'm concerned. You lose Rice, that's big because Rice was really breaking out into possible. I think he was breaking into being a top 10 receiver in the league if he wasn't already. He was really just on a tear. The defense is so good. I'm not worried about the team, going places obviously. But I do worry about, can they beat a Buffalo without adding a big-time number 1 receiver here? And I don't think that's possible. I really don't. I think Buffalo, and you want to throw Lamar and the Ravens in there, fine. I think these teams are so good, I don't think the Chiefs can beat them without going to get a Cooper or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, we had the same discussion last year. I mean, they've gone back-to-back years trading for a receiver at the deadline. In 22, it was Tony. In 23, it was Hardman. No crazy big moves. Tony was a little bit more notable than the Hardman move was at the time. I'm going to actually surprisingly give the Chiefs a little bit of credit here, but I'm also going to take a dig at the same time. And you'll see what I mean. So the Chiefs have done this incredible thing where they've adapted their play style over the years and sort of had 2 different identities whilst winning Super Bowls with each identity, right? You had the first Super Bowl where it was Patrick Mahomes setting the world on fire and doing whatever the hell he wanted, and they, the year they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, and it was wow, this guy's the best quarterback we've seen in a really long time, and blah, 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 and they just were that exciting, dominating offense. And now they've sort of turned into a team that relies on their defense, plays in close games, but it always just seems like they're going to pull it out in the end, and they don't have Tyreek Hill and are, throwing, although Worthy had a really nice deep touchdown on Sunday, they don't throw it over your head, and Mahomes is putting up 4 or 5 touchdowns, 350 yards, 400 yards in games sometimes. That's not happening anymore. So credit to them for doing that, but I'm also starting to be yeah, Patrick Mahomes is really good, and he's got Super Bowl rings and everything, but can we maybe chill out with the he's on his own little top of the mountain and everybody else is below him? Because if you look at the way that this team plays and that he plays now, it's not an overly impressive style of football from a quarterback compared to the way other quarterbacks in the league are playing. I'm sorry. I don't care if that's a hot take. It's true. If you look at the numbers, they're not throwing the ball downfield.
The last 2 seasons, you have a case. I think before that, I would call you crazy.
Oh, yeah.
The last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
Yeah, Josh Allen is as good or better than him. I can't, and I'm, you know how much I like Joshy Poo. I'm there.
Let me also clarify what I'm saying. It's not even that I'm saying that Josh Allen, for example, is better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm just saying that in the style that this team is playing, Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure, has that. Of course, still has that in the back of his bag of tricks. But he doesn't need to be a Josh Allen with the way that this team is constructed and the way that they run this offense.
No, and I think credit to coaching, right, and then credit to the defense because
hot as
I
balls
don't.
in here, bro.
It is. We got the AC going.
No,
we got to get the AC going.
We'll go to break in a little bit and we'll figure.
I'm really gonna start
be
drenched in a little
you brought
bit.
a hat. I got nothing.
I know, but the sweat is soaking up in the hat. And we were at our buddy's house watching on Saturday night. I wore this exact hat. We were in the basement of our buddy's house, and we were watching Georgia-Bama, which I had a decent amount of money on Georgia. Live bet them, too, by the way, down 21.
Down.
So I'm sweating watching that. I'm sweating watching the Mets lose to the Brewers. And then we put on another game that we had money on. So I was literally dripping of sweat in this basement, in this hat. Now, 2 days in a row, we got the sweat going on.
Dude, you're going to have to get you a new hat soon.
I'm going to buy the postseason one, 2024.
Okay. Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah, that's badass. That's chills. Yeah, the Mahomes thing, it's weird. I still view him as one, right? And I guess you could say the gap between... See, I think what's gotten larger is the gap between Allen and then the rest of everybody. So, I think there's Mahomes here at the top. Then I think there's I don't think it's a big gap, but a gap. Then there's Allen. And then I think there's a pretty decent gap. And then you got the Strouds, Burrows, Loves of the world. Lamar's.
No Lamar. I was going to say no Lamar.
Lamar's, yeah.
I don't hate that take, actually.
That's where I'm at with the
take.
quarterback list, at least.
Okay.
Like, Allen has
I'm
closed the
I'm
gap.
not going to hate on that.
Allen has closed the gap between Mahomes and furthered the gap between the rest.
To me, they're Brady and Manning. It's Josh Allen's Peyton and Mahomes is Tom Brady. Mahomes is at any point could be the best quarterback in the NFL. He's got the Super Bowl rings and the accolades and everything like that. Josh Allen is the little bit more exciting guy at this point because of what he could do on the ground. A little bit more prone to turnovers, although Patrick Mahomes has had his turnover issues recently. And just hasn't won as much.
But I'm happy you bring this up because now I'm looking at Brady. And I've noticed this when I looked at Brady's stats, when you go through his Pro Football Reference page. You're right. Brady had a couple of years where you're like, and some of them back to back, and it's not really a Brady-esque year. And it just depends on the talent you have around you. And you're winning in different ways. And I think that's what dynasties do. This is a dynasty here, basically, with Kansas City. And, I think at this point, like, they're just finding different ways to win. But the one thing that is a constant is that they're really good late in games. And whether that is a credit to Mahomes, whether that's a credit to Andy Reid, I think overall we have to give credit to that defense.
I mean, they are 4-0 right now, and I believe they have the third or fourth worst point differential out of any 4-0 team in NFL history.
Yeah, they just know it. They literally just, and I know this is cliche and you don't like to hear it, they just know how to win. They know how to play late. They're comfortable in these really uncomfortable scenarios late in football games.
Yep.
That's where we've gotten with this team.
Yep.
And that's why you can't pick against them. You can't pick against them late in the season.
You can't.
Late in the year, in the postseason. Who would you go get? If you were going to go get a receiver here, who would you go get?
I mean,
you got to worry about the cap situation too.
Yeah, the cap situation, the possibility. The Chiefs don't need to go out and make a drastic move and get a Devontae Adams or somebody like that. They don't need to go out and trade for Cooper Kupp. That's not going to happen. I think they'll just go out there and get somebody that's like, okay, nice, get a little veteran who's decent. They're not going to get some number one receiver off of a team. I don't think that's happening. I think you'll see something similar to they got Tony. I mean, they got Hardman last year because of the familiarity.
Cooper's a possibility.
Yeah.
Cooper, I think his cap hits. Amari Cooper, his cap hits only $605,000. I saw. They can make it work with the cap. Send him a second-round pick. Deontay Johnson's going to be gone after the season in Carolina.
I was going to say some Carolina if Thielen was healthy.
Thielen could be another move. All right, how about this? You want to go the lesser? How about Darius Slayton? Could Darius Slayton be there?
No,
big deep threat.
Disgusting.
I was serious about that.
He's a deep threat with
Could Jalen Hyatt be a possible target for them?
They're just gonna start pumping out giants like
young
wide receivers.
They tried it once. You might as well go to the well
again.
How did
that work out?
Might as well go to the well again and see if you could.
Did play well in the Super Bowl.
I mean, this guy's not a piece of crap though. At least
Yeah,
Tony. I mean, you're getting a decent guy in Hyatt.
Good point. Mike, what do you say before we talk about our next thing? We go to break and turn this damn AC.
Yeah, let's do that, please.
Okay.
Now we're feeling cool in here. Let's get to some good, bad, and ugly. JM and I were going to change this up a little bit. We're going to give one good, one bad, one ugly each. Kind of shorten this segment. There's a lot more we want to get to. We're going to introduce a new segment today called the Hate Club, which we'll get to later on. We're going to give some overreactions as well. I got a great overreaction from week 4. So let's get to this, the good, the bad, the ugly. JM, let's start with your good.
Michael, my good is a team that seems like they're going to be on this list week after week because they have been so far. We've seen nothing but good things out of them. It's the Minnesota Vikings. They went into Lambeau Field with their big test that I hyped up the Packers, who, of course, couldn't just let me sit there in misery and, be like, oh, I just wasted my money on betting on this team. No, let's make it interesting and come back in the fourth quarter just to crush him again. But anyways,
you had to know when he goes for 2 there, you're not covering that game.
Yep, I was
right then and there. He goes for 2 and gets it. You're not covering
it. I'm not covering. But nobody cares about my feelings. So my feelings aside, I mean, what is there not to like about the way this team's playing? The defense continues to impress, although they did break down a little bit at the end. But you give them a little bit of a leeway for that because they're just playing to not allow the Packers to rip off a 90-yard touchdown. They're up 28-7 at halftime against a rival on the road. Sam Darnold's got 136 yards and 3 touchdowns at the half. And by the way, I don't think anybody is saying this, but just in case it's in the back of anybody's mind, this isn't like, oh, Sam Darnold is playing in a very good system and he's just kind of being, taking what the defense gives him and playing within structure. No, Sam Darnold is making throws. He is moving around, creating, using his athleticism. He is making throws.
Listen, he's got good weapons. He's got a great coach. They've got a pretty good offensive line. He's in a good system, but this isn't a system quarterback. He's been incredible. And yeah, how about Aaron Jones too, man? Aaron Jones has been really good. A great pickup, emotional return for him. Love coming off the injury, he might not have been fully healthy there.
Right. A little rusty, for sure.
A little rusty. He like Rodgers and like Favre, he's going to be prone to the turnover. He throws off the back foot a lot. He's a little wild. So I think you're going to see that, he had 3 picks yesterday. One of them, I think, just kind of like a Hail Mary last-second heave.
Yeah.
Well, he probably shouldn't have thrown that. Interesting with Love. Rusty, threw a lot, ended up getting some picks. I got to say, JM, I know we're going to talk about the Jets, but this week, I think the biggest disadvantage in a league like this year, in terms of position to position, head coach, offensive head coach to offensive head coach to defensive head coach to defensive coordinator. I think you have the biggest discrepancy in talent this week, Jets.
Okay.
Jets Vikings.
You had me until the defensive coordinator comparisons.
Well, Brian Flores has been great. Unbelievable.
Jeff Ulbrich is the only guy on this.
No, and I like
staff
Ulbrich.
That is
I know. I was talking more Saleh.
Okay.
I was going more Saleh.
Yeah, but Saleh's on the defensive mind. Side of the ball is a very good defensive
All right,
mind.
let's go head coach to main coordinator on the opposite side of the ball.
Yeah, okay.
That's what That's how I should have prefaced it. Yeah. Head coach.
How about just offensive play caller versus offensive play caller? I think you could just leave it there.
It's the big, biggest
that's the big gap. But Mike, respectfully, bro, can we not make everything about the Jets? Because if you want to see me here for the rest of the show without breaking anything in the room,
we do have to get to the Jets in a little bit.
Yeah, like we said, these segments are called Good, Bad, and Ugly. I'll let you guys take a wild guess where the Jets are going to be.
But the Vikings are very impressive.
Vikings are good, Mike. And the defense, you said Love was a little rusty, but 3 interceptions. That guy, Gruger Hill, if I'm saying his name wrong, sorry. Unbelievable interception. They were playing like a cover 2 concept. He's sitting in a zone, and Love, it wasn't even a bad decision that Love made. It was just a better play by the guy to jump that route and pick them off. And, one of the concerns, I know we're talking about the good here, but we also got to talk about the Packers. One of the concerns I have about them on the defensive side of the ball, Jair was out yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And the rest of that cornerback room just seems very suspect. Those linebackers are nothing special either. And the pass rush, am I wrong to say we expect a little bit more against the Vikings there? That is supposed to be what you thrive your defense off of. You made some investments in there over the years. We know about Van Ness, the first-round rookie from a couple years ago.
Sure.
Rashawn Gary's supposed to be your big bad weapon on defense, Kenny Clark. And it just hasn't been there. And, they played really well against Tennessee, but I think, me and you could strap up and go against Tennessee. We might not look that bad. Yeah. But Minnesota, especially at home, the pass rush was just kind of non-existent.
And it was a statement win. That's a spot where you could have seen a letdown spot for that Vikings team on the road against a rival with the starting quarterback coming back to play. And they silenced everybody and won, really going away. They dominated that game. Obviously, they make it close, Green Bay, but then hold them off in the end. So good by O'Connell, good by the Vikes. They're for real, and they're absolutely the top team in the NFC for me right now. And
What is the spread for Jets? It is 2. Wow, it's only 2.5 still.
It was 1 last. We checked last week. It was 1.
1.5.
I had you to guess it. It was 1.5.
I'm surprised at that line.
We'll have to see how that goes. Mike, my good.
What is it, Mike?
The commies. I mean, how can they not? I bet against them. Short week, traveling cross country, no problemo for that team. Putting up 42 points in Arizona and holding the Cardinals, who have an explosive offense, to just 14. JM, offensively, defensively, this team looked great. Cliff Kingsbury is in his bag right now. And shout out to Dan Quinn, who had me motivated. Actually, I had a little goosebumps. If you saw his post-game speech he gave the game ball to Cliff Kingsbury, and just really pumped him up. That was cool. That was pretty cool. Cliff Kingsbury,
You're a big
obviously
speech guy.
Yeah, I can get motivated easy. I get
motivated. It's honestly one of your flaws. You get too invested in speeches.
You think?
Yeah, like Jets Hard Knocks, you were like, I'm out on Saleh. Like,
well, I ended up being right.
Same thing with Eberflus. You're like, I'm out on Eberflus.
Okay, I'm 2 for 2 with not liking coaches who didn't give good speeches. Yeah. Come on. Now, you want to add one. I was all in on Joe Judge after his introductory press conference, but yeah. Where was I? Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's doing a good job. Cliff Kingsbury obviously doing a good job. Listen, they're putting Daniels in the perfect situations here, and he's succeeding, and he's explosive. He can make every throw. We know about his speed, but I'm impressed with the defense yesterday. The secondary's awful. We know how bad the secondary is, but they got a pass rush yesterday, and they were in Kyler's face, and they brought Kyler down. So, I mean, that's just an incredibly impressive win on the road. I mean, the Cardinals went right down the field, scored on their first drive, and then they were outscored 42-7 the rest of the game. That's the team I put the most money on yesterday. Second most money on yesterday.
Not a good look.
Disgusting.
Yeah, not a good look.
Disgusting performance from Jonathan Gannon and that Cardinal team. So the commies are the good. I mean, we could have put the bad on the Cardinals.
The efficiency out of this offense is absurd. Like, we're talking about, like, we're starting to get to, like, record-breaking efficiency.
And obviously
scoring drives, 26 for 30 passing from Jaden Daniels. I mean, I know what you're going to say. They haven't played the toughest schedule in terms of defenses.
I wasn't even going to say that. But, I mean, yeah, it's obviously not sustainable, but it doesn't need to be sustainable.
No.
Like, if it's half that, right, it's still good enough.
Every game. I mean, with that defense, you might have to, but...
Well, in some games, yeah. But
and, I mean, credit to them. Defense played well yesterday.
Yeah, they played good enough to beat the Bengals on Monday night.
But, do we trust them once the Commanders step into... To me, they're trending just like the Texans last year. Like, okay, Stroud's really good. Surprise. How's the rest of this team? Looks kind of crappy as the weeks go on. Okay, well, they're hanging in there with this team. Well, they beat that team. Okay. Well,
but now we're getting to the point where the division doesn't look so good.
Right.
That now it's like, oh, well, this team can go to the playoffs. This team can win the division. Yeah. Like, that is absolutely a possibility at the moment because
of course.
You don't trust the Eagles, and we're going to get to the Eagles in a little bit. And Dallas is Dallas. They're just very average. I would pick Washington on a neutral field to beat Dallas. Yep. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. And it's funny. It's so funny how C.J. Stroud has the best rookie year a quarterback's ever had last season. And then this year, we're thinking, look at the situation that Caleb Williams is in and the talent, obviously, with Caleb and the kind of prospect he is. Mm-hmm. You're thinking, oh, Caleb's going to, match it or come close to the greatest rookie season we've ever seen from a quarterback. And we're getting it the year after, but it's with the guy we didn't think would do it.
Yeah.
That's what's really impressive about Jaden Daniels.
82% completion percentage on the year is absurd. That's just crazy. And honestly, one of the things we're not talking about with this team that's been really nice is their run game has been very good. And this is a team that could not run the football last year.
You got 3 guys. You got Daniels, Eckler, and Robinson.
Yep.
3 guys that can run the football.
Yep.
They're threats. Get on the commies. I got a really interesting thing for you. I got a really interesting question.
What would that be?
This is like really never going to happen kind of question, but let's just ask it. So, like when Dan Campbell blew the game in San Francisco, I would have fired Campbell and hired Ben Johnson immediately because I wouldn't have wanted to lose Johnson. I could live with losing Campbell. Okay? Again, something that would never happen. are we going to get to a point where Kingsbury is the most important part of this team, offensive play caller wise?
I could see it being the same dynamic of Dan Campbell.
You're not going to fire Quinn. You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. But in fantasy world, like the offensive play caller with your young quarterback playing really well, like that is somebody I'd want to keep there. And Kingsbury's going to be head coach next year.
Yeah, Kingsbury is going to be a head coach next year for sure if this keeps up. It's a little different than the Campbell situation. I think, Dan Quinn we know how respected of a defensive coordinator he is. He's been, we're talking about the Seattle team, the Legion of Boom, that team he's the defensive coordinator for.
And you're right. The difference is Quinn's been a good head coach in the league before.
And Quinn's been a good head coach in the league before. Like, Campbell didn't really have a track record as anything, really, before that, right? I mean, he came from New Orleans, was respected, but wasn't, like, this hotshot defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator or anything like that.
The biggest difference is Quinn succeeded elsewhere.
Yes.
And you trust Quinn.
Yes.
And he had a very good, look at the Dallas defense right now.
I mean, it's an interesting decision. If he starts making reckless decisions like Dan Campbell did last year, then we'll see.
Interesting. It's not going to happen, but
let's hope they get to that point. I really do think they could win this division, though.
They can win this division.
100%.
Philly stinks, and so does Dallas. JM, you're bad.
I'm on bad now? Okay, yes, my bad. Mike, when I saw the opportunity to take this team as the bad, I lit up because, I'm sorry if there's anybody. I know there's a couple of Pittsburgh Steelers fans that watch this show. Me and Merlot just have this anti-Steelers bias. For whatever reason, it was instilled in our brains, and that's the way we think. The Pittsburgh Steelers are my bad. So they're 3-0. They're going into Indianapolis, and put the betting trends aside and everything like that. Think about it from a Steelers perspective. You're going into Indy. You're 3-0. You just had a really nice win against Los Angeles. Justin Fields made some nice throws in that game. And you're facing an Anthony Richardson-led Colts team that is reckless, turns the ball over. Their run defense has looked putrid. And you lose the game. Anthony Richardson gets hurt. Joe Flacco comes in, which I said to you either off camera or on camera. At some point, this Colts team, don't they have to consider, maybe we got to do something like a Bryce Young situation, and we have the best backup in the NFL in Joe Flacco.
Wait till you see my overreaction.
We got to put him in. Oh, boy. So Joe Flacco carves him up. The Steelers couldn't run the ball. Their identity is to play stifling defense and run the ball, sort of like a Ravens light. They don't have a Lamar Jackson that could air it out when things break down, but that is what the Steelers' winning identity is going to be. And the defense played like crap, and the offense played even worse. Turnover galore. Justin Fields did Justin Fields things. He's running back 20 yards to evade a sack, trips on his own feet, fumbles the ball, gives up the ball. George Pickens fumbles inside of the 10-yard line. Spencer Anderson, who is an offensive lineman for the Steelers, late hit, takes them out of field goal range. By the way, the Justin Fields fumble, they were also in field goal range before that, so that's now 6 points that they left on the board. Mike Tomlin is going for it on his own 39-yard line on 4th and inches. I mean, what is the logic there in the second possession of the game with that offense? And how about this, Mike? This was my most astounding stat that I read about this game. 23.1% of Najee Harris's carries came against an 8-man box. Jeez. Why don't you read that stat to a Chicago Bears fan who's losing their mind right now, thinking, oh, we lost Justin Fields. Oh, my God, what are we doing? Caleb looks like crap. You have NFL defensive coordinators. Granted, the Colts' run defense has been terrible, so you might need a couple extra guys in the box. But you have NFL defensive coordinators who are like, yeah, Justin Fields, I'm not worried about it. Let's put 8 guys in the box. That's crazy.
No, it is interesting. This was a good letdown spot to bet the Colts here and let down with the Steelers. We're not fans. We don't believe in this team, and I think the Colts here with Flacco, and I'll get to that later. This is a good situation for him. I think, especially with the players that they have right now and the way they're situated. But yeah, Tomlin's out coached by Steichen, and Steichen finally had his coming out party here. I think they probably would have won the game with Richardson. I mean, they went right down the field, scored, and then I think they were going down the field again when he got hurt. So but I think they probably win the game with Richardson as well, but it might be even closer than it was.
Yeah.
But Yeah, the Steelers here, not great.
Nope.
Some bad mistakes. Now, Fields did a couple of good things in this game. His stat line looks pretty good, but you see those mistakes that he made. It's a bad game.
Yeah. And they were due for it. I mean,
They were due.
yeah. That's a nice pick out of you.
I really felt good about that pick.
That was
It got
sharp.
me-
You said it. It was
It
sharp.
got me in a good mood, and then the Cardinals ruined it for me. The Cardinals ruined the day.
Yeah.
All right, JM, my bad. This is bad. I mean, this could have been ugly. The Jacksonville Jaguars. The fact that it's Monday at 8:48 p.m. and Doug Peterson hasn't been scapegoated for this mess yet.
Yeah, not a bad point.
Honest to God, is shocking to me. I thought he'd be fired today. I thought he'd been fired after the Monday night game. Then I doubled down and said, okay, he's going to be fired today.
Yeah.
He's not fired
He's
yet,
not
though.
fired, Mike.
JM, guys
It'd be
were...
nice if we had, in our lives had job security like that. I'd sign up for that.
Yeah, I would sign up for that, too. JM, guys were open. They protected him pretty well yesterday, and Lawrence was bad. Lawrence was really bad yesterday. 18 of 33 for 169 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns, just was not good in this football game. And when you have a generational talent like this, I understand his rookie year was an absolute mess with Meyer. But when you bring in an offensive coordinator, like an offensive coach like Doug Peterson, and year one, you see progress, right? Oh, he looked good. They go to the playoffs. To see the downgrade in 2 seasons, especially after paying him, has to be a concern. Like, you can't fire the quarterback, right? You can't get rid of the quarterback. You signed him to a 5-year, $250 million contract. So now I think it's time to figure something out. Whether it's the offensive coordinator that goes, you scapegoat him. Somebody's got to get scapegoated for this mess, because you blow a lead, a game that you should have won, a game that you really, I mean, your season's over, but you needed to win. Right now your season's really over at 0-4. But, Mike, that's a game they're right in. They should have won it. The Texans, late in that game, were just punting the football. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
They're just punting the football back to each other until finally Houston drives down the field and scores.
Yep, they got a serious issue there. That offense is stagnant, and it starts with the quarterback, like you said. I mean, this is going to be like the age-old argument. It has been, and it's going to continue to be, and we could sit here until we croak right in these chairs talking about the quarterbacks and who fails the quarterback. Is it the quarterback himself? Is it the organization? What should teams look for when they're drafting a quarterback? You said it. You called Trevor Lawrence a generational talent. And you can't really argue that, because what you saw on tape in college and what you see in his physical traits is a guy that is not somebody that comes around every single year. That's why he's a generational talent. But I feel like at this point, if I'm an NFL talent evaluator and I'm looking for a quarterback, screw the combine, screw his tape. I don't want to look at any of that stuff, right? Unless, you're evaluating a guy who threw 3 touchdowns and 25 interceptions that year. Sit him down in your room, give him the playbook, watch some film with him, see how he analyzes the field, and if he's a guy who can read an NFL defense like nobody you've ever interviewed, I'd be like, yep, that's our guy.
It's about the smarts now.
Because it really is like these quarterbacks about processing. Like, CJ Stroud is not the most talented guy. Let me just preface this. CJ Stroud is very talented, one of the upper half talented quarterbacks in the league. But what I'm trying to say is I'm complimenting CJ Stroud's ability to read defenses, ability to act like a pro and adapt so quickly that he did when he got to Houston. That's why he had such a good year last year. Jaden Daniels, listen, obviously guys can have higher completion percentages if they play a little bit more conservatively with the air yards, like Anthony Richardson with his 50 completion percentage, but he's throwing the ball 14 yards downfield every time. But it takes a certain processing mind to be able to have over an 80% completion percentage. That's one of the great things that Jaden Daniels is doing. If you watch the games, he's scanning the defense throughout the play. He's going through his progressions, and he's throwing without hesitation. I feel like at this point, certain things could be taught. Speed can't be taught. Athleticism can't be taught. Accuracy can be taught up to a certain extent when it just comes to mechanics, but you still have to have it in you to be consistently accurate. But at the end of the day, bro, it comes down to the mind and the offense you play in and the ability to read the pros. And I don't know if Trevor Lawrence has it.
No, I don't think he does. This is not a good situation. Again, guys were open. They have good weapons. They paid them. They didn't have to. They paid them.
Yep.
And now they're in this situation.
Yep.
JM, I think we're going to spend a lot of time on both of these uglies.
Yeah.
The ugly for you in week 4 of the NFL.
Yeah, so the ugly, I don't even know why I'm looking at my screen. There's no notes on this one. I could tell you everything that happened. Yeah, the New York Jets are my ugly. And, I mean, where do I even begin? Let's just start with what was ugly about the game. How about the weather? I mean, you're looking... I'm sitting in my backyard watching the game. I mean, it's not the nicest day out, but it's nice enough to be outside. And I'm like, okay, well, it's raining in MetLife, so that wasn't expected because I thought, Long Island would be all right, but New Jersey, a little bit of a different story. Anyways, you're the weatherman here.
A little far. It's
A little bit.
We know when we go. It's the worst travel on planet Earth.
Is. But, yeah, I mean, just ugliness all around. You could talk about the coaching. One of the biggest things was the penalties. They had 13 penalties, and 2 of them were actually declined. So 15 penalties, false starts. One of the weapons that Aaron Rodgers has had his entire career has been the hard count and the free plays. And, he's the NFL's all-time leader in free play touchdowns, and we've seen him do it countless times. He's done it this year. And Breece Hall himself, the worst game I've seen him play as a Jet by far. 2 false start penalties. Tyron Smith with a false start. John Simpson with a false start. False starts all over the place. Undisciplined. 2 15-yard penalties. Holding calls. Just sloppiness.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Jet fans, I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is a 2023 Jets football game. That is what this is. And there's a lot of reaction going on right now about the coaching, and that's where a lot of the blame is going, and rightfully so. I'm at this point not exactly a Saleh believer. I also think the temperature needs to cool a little bit after one game, considering we were just saying this team was going to skip to the Super Bowl. Not everybody, but some people were saying, the Jets are here, and they're not going anywhere. Super Bowl contender, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, fire Rob Saleh, fire Nathaniel Hackett, blah, blah, blah. So let's cool the temperature a little bit. But the first thing we got to talk about is the coaching.
Yeah, so let's go over the things that Robert Saleh couldn't control yesterday. Okay, one, he couldn't control the weather.
Nope.
Okay, so crappy day.
Yep.
The other thing he couldn't control was his offensive line being absolutely embarrassing. An embarrassing performance from their offensive line. They couldn't protect Rodgers. They couldn't run the ball at all, even in the rain, and you're not going up against the 85 Bears. So there's really no excuse for that.
Not the 85 Bears, but I think people do need to start respecting this Broncos defense. After the performance they put up against Tampa and then this performance, they are a very good defense.
That's fine, but you assemble this offensive line and you spend money and resources on it, and it's okay, we should be able to move the ball and move some people on this Denver Broncos offensive line. That Saleh can't control. Can't control that. But the penalties, the penalties, the sloppiness, that's a big time issue. I do think there's something here with the Saleh Rodgers thing. I don't know how much of a fan Aaron Rodgers is of Robert Saleh. I think these post-game, back and forth yesterday with the cadences, and then Saleh basically backing down on everything that he said about it this morning during a press conference. I think there's something there, but
I think we're kind of reading between the tea leaves.
I don't know. I don't think I am.
Too much. I think we're just
I don't think I am. I think we're going to hear this at the end of the year. Jam, let me ask you this. Honest to God, you know how I feel about defensive coaches and offensive coaches. I would prefer to hire an offensive coach, right? I think Saleh is a really good defensive coordinator. I think whatever he does on the defense, him and Ulbrich, I think he does a good job. But what is he adding to this team, right? I'm talking about in the offseason when you're reassessing everything, right? You're assessing your coaching staff. What is he adding to this team that an offensive coach wouldn't, and then you hire a defensive coordinator, or you keep Ulbrich, right? You have a talented group here on defense, right? Mm-hmm. You can find a good defensive coordinator. It's difficult to find good offensive play callers and good offensive coaches.
This is what I don't get, though, with the whole Saleh treatment, is why is it that all the bad stuff gets thrown on him, but we also call him a defensive head coach, and when the defense goes from the number 32 defense in the NFL his first year to then becoming a top 3 defense in the NFL, why is all the credit given to Ulbrich? I don't think that's fair at all.
No, I don't think it is either. But again, I think when you accumulate so much talent on the defensive side of the football like they have the past few years, and they've developed.
Yeah, but they've done exactly. Development has been key.
Right.
They've had some guys emerge that haven't. They've had free agent signings step up.
Again, there are a lot of good defensive coordinators in this league. The offensive coaches, it's tough to find a good offensive play caller, and they don't have one. They just don't. So my thing is, like, what did Saleh add to this team by keeping him? What was the benefit of keeping Robert Saleh in the offseason?
I think
that's the question.
This is another thing now. So we're kind of just talking, and we're trying to put our finger on it. But I think if you look around the league, like if I asked you, what has Dan Campbell added to the Lions? The only thing you would be able to think of is he changed the culture. He's a motivator.
Right. And I just told you I would have fired Campbell.
But Dan Campbell, that's your opinion.
Right.
Like Dan Campbell, he's the head coach of a team that's gone from almost having an 0-6, or did they go 0-16? They almost went 0-16 to almost going to the Super Bowl last year. So like, I think we're reading a little too far into like, we're not in the building. We don't know the day-to-day operations and the game day operations and who's calling what. So we're like, well, this is bad. So we're going to throw that on Saleh. And like, if you're not clearly identified as like Mike McDaniel, where you're definitely the play caller and you put cool, funky plays out there, that we're just like, oh, well, what is Robert Saleh doing for the Jets? I think we could more read into like, yeah, the penalties were a problem. That's on the coaching staff. Sure, Robert Saleh isn't the most PR trained person. That is a problem. I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's not like Bill Belichick was the greatest PR person on the planet.
Jamie's 20-35 as a coach.
Again, bro, like the first year, 3 of those years are Zach Wilson. I mean,
all right, one of those years they started out 5-2, 6 and what was it?
Again with Zach Wilson.
Right.
See, like. That's what I'm saying is I think that you need to also look at it as all we think is they collapsed and you know it was a failure and whatever, but like the fact that they were even 5-2 in the first place with Zach Wilson as their quarterback, you could look at it from the other perspective and be like, wow, that's impressive. I'm not saying Robert Saleh is not like I'm not saying Robert Saleh is a guy that's going to be the reason that this team goes places. I'm not big on Saleh, and I'm starting to really fall out on him because of the problems with the penalties, and they had problems with penalties last year too, and the team just seems a bit undisciplined and could get sloppy at times for whatever reason. But I think to throw all the blame on the coaching of himself and not give him credit for basically anything is a little harsh.
I also think that I don't think they have enough talent on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think they have enough weapons.
That's the biggest concern right now is Breece and Garrett Wilson have been, like, kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. I don't know how much I'd worry about Breece. I'm a little worried about Wilson.
I do think they have the offensive talent because, like, the emergence now of Lazard with Rodgers and Mike Williams looks great. I mean, he's going to he might – who knows what the hell's going to happen with Garrett Wilson at this point. Aaron Rodgers might turn to Mike Williams as his favorite target at some point.
This is crazy with Wilson.
Yeah. But again, this is the NFL. Like we're week to week. We have so much time in between games to talk about teams. Next week, if they go out and beat the Vikings in London, we're having a completely different conversation. So I'm going to cool the temperature. I'm not going to freak out. Obviously, today, I mean, I wanted to punch everything in sight because of that disgusting football game I had. I literally barely watched football after that game yesterday. Did that ever happen to you? Like, your football team plays so bad, you're having a bad day betting, you're having a bad day fantasy, whatever, that you're like, I don't even want to watch football.
No, I'd chase the rush, and I'd chase the bets.
See, I'm also a NASCAR guy, so like I have something else to watch on Sundays.
So you put NASCAR on?
I put NASCAR on, yeah. Like the 4 o'clock games, like I did. I just
the
like
4 o'clock
I rewatched
games,
stuff today.
Who was it? It was Chiefs. It really wasn't a great
Commanders,
4 o'clock.
Cardinals.
It wasn't a good 4 o'clock window. He didn't miss much. No. But
anyways,
not
that's
ideal,
enough
Mike.
Jet talk.
Yeah, Mike. Let's get hating. Let's
go, dude.
Let's get hating. The Philadelphia Eagles are a bad football team, and Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. Mike, Jalen Hurts, 27 turnovers since last year. That leads the league. Did you know? 9 straight games with a turnover. I don't care that he didn't have anybody to throw to yesterday, okay? You want to throw yesterday's game out? Fine. We can throw yesterday's game out. We still have a large enough sample size now of Hurts being bad. In fact, we have more evidence of Jalen Hurts being a below-average quarterback in this league than we do of him being a top 10 quarterback in this league. Okay, and that's a fact. That is a stone-cold fact. We need to start asking the questions of how bad is this contract going to be for Philadelphia? What are they going to do? And this is a question I really want to ask you. This is what I teased off camera. Which contract would you rather have right now, Jalen Hurts or Daniel Jones? Which contract would you rather have? That's an interesting question because we're not talking enough about how much of a problem Jalen Hurts has been for this team.
All right, let's take a look at the numbers here. Jalen Hurts, wow. You don't have a potential out in this contract until 2028. He's got a $13 million cap hit now, $21 million the year after that, $31 million the year after that, and $41 million the year after that. Granted, I don't know what's going to happen. We know how the NFL works where all of a sudden they're like, oh, we restructured a deal, and now his cap hit is $2 million.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the cap goes up year after year, so it's a little bit less of a percentage.
Right.
Bro, you just put me in a bad spot. I mean, listen, I'm not. No, it's a great question though. I mean, we did it last week, and I was texting with people all week that were ripping on me about my Jaden Daniels take, saying I'd rather have him than Jalen Hurts. Which, I mean, another week has gone by, and that point looks better.
Not even close.
Jalen Hurts, you know, over his past 2 seasons, he's got 27 passing touchdowns and 19 interceptions. I mean, take away
and
the
he's
tush
got a fumbling
push.
problem.
Yeah, and he's got a fumbling problem. Take away the tush push. You know, what does this guy have? He's got a 90.7 passer rating. He's got an 85.7 that's for his career. He's got an 85.7 passer rating this year, 89.1 passer rating last year. I believe Justin Fields last year in Chicago, he was like an 85 passer rating. So, is that what the standard is now, to be a $50 million quarterback?
By the way, Daniel Jones 92.5 in his contract getting year.
So, it's really difficult. I'm gonna say the Daniel Jones contract, because the Daniel Jones contract is basically a no. Like, they're, you know, we make the joke that you've been saying it for years now. They could get out of it after this year. So Jalen Hurts, you're stuck. And what I've been seeing out of this guy, like, let's all pretend that 2022 didn't happen, right? That the 14-1, that was his record.
Yeah.
He played 15 games. 14-1 and going to the Super Bowl, and he played great in the Super Bowl. And I mean, I don't think there was a bigger Jalen Hurts supporter than me.
You loved Jalen.
I loved him.
You were all over him.
I mean, take that away. And what do you have? You have a slightly above average passer and a good runner.
Do you? I think you just have Justin Fields. More
more
motivational Justin Fields.
He's got, these are his passer ratings in the years that were not 2022. 77, 87, 89, 86.
You have nothing.
Is that really what we're striving for now?
You have nothing.
For that to be a $50 million quarterback that you have tied to your payroll until 2028, Mike, I mean, how could you be comfortable with that?
Remember, the light schedule in 2022, just a multitude of weapons. Sure, you want to put your quarterback in the best possible situation. Yeah. Also, a really good offensive coordinator over there in Shane Steichen calling plays. Let me ask you, what does Nick Sirianni add to this team? I'm going to ask the same question because think about it. His power in terms of the say he had in the offense got stripped last season. Okay, got stripped after last season, right? And we know he doesn't have a good relationship with the quarterback. We know that for a fact. I need to know what Nick Sirianni's purpose and role on this team is, because it's not much.
I'm not sure at this point, dude. And I mean, I hate to go back to the Hurts conversation, but like Sirianni, it ties into each other. Like, this guy has talent all across the board with this team. Like, there's not really position group besides, we talk about the secondary. I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson should retire tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there's talent all over this team, and the excuses are up for him, and they're definitely up for Hurts. I mean, the way we treat quarterbacks around this league that are in tough situations, like a Josh Allen or even a Lamar, who hasn't had a number one receiver in his entire career, and they reach these high MVP levels, and Jalen Hurts, the year that he went to the Super Bowl and was an MVP candidate, had the best offensive line in football. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, I'm not going to say Miles Sanders, but weapons all over the place and a fantastic offensive line. And the excuses are up for him and they're up for Sirianni. I mean, when are we going to hold both of these guys accountable? And I think Sirianni's name has been getting dirt on it a lot, but the Hurts accountability needs to get driven up a little bit.
100%. JM, time for our new segment, The Hate Club. Why don't you talk us through here?
So this was an idea I thought of because a lot of the times I find myself in the sports world or in general. I think I'm a person, I get riled up about things sometimes. And I even say, like, bro, chill out. But I thought, what better way to just let it all out than on this show and call it The Hate Club. So I will kick us off. Basically, what we're going to do is whenever we do it, whether it's weekly or just in the episodes, we're gonna open the segment called The Hate Club and pick something from that weekend or something that's bothering us about the sport of football that we hate. And the first inauguration into The Hate Club is these stupid-ass, unsportsmanlike conduct, taunting, penalties, excessive celebration, whatever the hell you want to call it. Malik Neighbors goes to Cleveland and absolutely embarrasses the Browns secondary.
Sure.
And scores 2 touchdowns. And, Malik's out there. He's feeling himself. He's doing his little touchdown celebration. And sure, maybe he does a little something like that. Or some referencing a gun.
Yeah.
Okay? And now the NFL decides to fine Malik Neighbors for that. $26,000, I believe, something along that.
It's a lot of dough. I could use that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean, that's a napkin to Malik Neighbors, but still, we're fining players for that. And, in the Jet game, Alan Lazard gets a first down, a pretty big spot. And I wanted to get mad at Alan Lazard, and I couldn't even do it. I was just more mad at the NFL. He gets the first down. He goes like this, and he does a little bit of that. And, does a little shooting motion like he's shooting a little laser gun. It was the most subtle thing ever. He didn't get up and, start doing this to the stadium, start faking grenade tosses into the stands. Wow. Does a little bit of a shooting motion, and he gets a 15-yard penalty. So please, NFL, tell me, you have guys out here, domestic abuse, getting in manslaughter, car accidents, drugs, all these terrible things going on. But we decide, you know what? This is where we're gonna draw our line in the sand. This is what our problem is.
We're good. Yeah.
What genuinely? What are we doing? It's the no fun league.
No,
it is. It's the NFL is the no fun league.
They're back to being the no fun league. They had like a 2 year break basically, not being the no fun league. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know. I think the gun celebration is a little aggressive.
Listen,
I think it's a little aggressive.
We're not turning this into a political show. We know the gun problems in this country. You really think Malik Neighbors doing a little gun celebration is like, that's where the gun violence in this country comes from, because the NFL players are doing it.
I'll say this. John Mara did not like that celebration. I'll tell you that much.
Wait, I have an idea, actually.
Yeah.
How about no more shotgun formation? We got to rename it pistol formation. Oh, nope, not that either. Nope, none of that. Okay.
What about the
Brett Favre? We can't describe him as a gunslinger anymore. None of Joe Burrow, these guys that like to air it out. You're not a gunslinger. Nope, that's not allowed. Nothing about guns.
What was it again? The bullpen is offensive. We're gonna call it the arm barn.
Yes,
now.
the arm barn. Yeah. Honestly, I'm cool with that. Arm barn sounds sick.
It does sound pretty cool.
That's my hate club, Mike.
My hate club for week 4 here is sort of similar, but not really. It is on the referees, though, in terms of the ticky-tacky penalties that these guys are calling here, negating big-time plays for a hold on the opposite side of the field. I don't want to defend Deshaun Watson and the Browns here, but they had a big play to take the lead yesterday and was called back for a very ticky-tacky hold that, I don't even think the guy would have gotten there to sack Watson anyway, but, the offensive lineman had him a little bit. Nothing crazy. You look at the Giant game on Thursday night, so many penalties. They're getting penalties wrong. They don't know when to use the assistant replay or not because, they could use the assisted replay to pick up a flag on a touchdown for Dallas, but they can't use the assisted replay to correct a call that they got on the wrong team because the Giant player got called for a face mask when the Cowboy player was actually holding the face mask. So the referees this year, we've talked about them over the past couple of weeks. They're calling too many penalties. I thought they did a better job in week 3, but here in week 4, a couple of big plays negated for ticky-tacky penalties.
Yeah.
Stop over-officiating the game and get your head out of your ass. I understand it's a difficult job, but come on, figure it out.
There's laundry all over the field, dude. It seems like it's getting
all
worse
you're doing
and
is
worse
watching
every
green,
single year.
yellow flags. Just watching for the yellow flag.
I gotta say, am I wrong by saying football this year is just a little bit like?
I felt that
there's
last
something
year.
Missing.
Last year, I felt that big time. This year, I think we're getting to a point. Like I think last week and even week 3, you started to see the offenses really come alive. But the first 2 weeks this week and this year, and then last month. September was terrible last year.
Yeah, September was awful.
I think we just got to get out of September.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Get to October.
And, the NFL, they say preseason, Roger Goodell wants to get rid of preseason in its entirety. But September, it seems like we don't have enough preseason games.
No,
that's the preseason.
You don't have enough practice or preseason. Yeah. That's the problem here.
I don't know, Mike.
JM, time for the overreactions. I'll start us off here. My week 4 overreaction. The Colts should bench Anthony Richardson. They should start Joe Flacco. The offense looks so much better under Joe Flacco. And by the way, this isn't the first time we've seen this with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco went in and ran Kevin Stefanski's offense perfectly, got them to the playoffs. Joe Flacco yesterday, when coming in for Richardson, 16 of 26 for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns, completed 61% of his passes. He was legit in that game against a very good defense. These wide receivers, Michael Pittman, will benefit more from having a Joe Flacco in there, and the run game is good. It's going to benefit Joe Flacco. I think this team would compete for the division with Joe Flacco in as quarterback instead of Anthony Richardson. With Richardson in there, I don't like the receivers, and I don't think they make the playoffs. But with Flacco in here, I think there's a chance that they would win the division.
How could you not? It's honestly crazy that Joe Flacco isn't a starter in the league. For what he did last year, and now it just seems like he comes into any situation and he could just improve it.
The best backup quarterback in the league by far.
Maybe
ever. This year and last year, you can make the argument that there's never been a better backup quarterback.
Yeah,
maybe the guy that won the Super Bowl for the Giants in '86, but I don't know, man.
How many times do you view a backup quarterback coming in the game and you're like, what an upgrade? With
Flacco.
Yeah.
It's with Flacco.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, my overreaction, and it's kind of tailoring off of what you just said because they should have never let him go. The Browns need a bench Deshaun Watson. I don't care what it looks like anymore of, we're paying this guy all this money and we can't get out of it. I'm looking at the freaking contract right now. Nice, $72 million cap hit next year. Holy crap. My overreaction should actually be the Browns should disband their franchise because I don't know what they're going to do. Or they should force him to retire or hire a hitman or something. I really don't know what the options are for them. But
that's crazy. That is crazy.
This is all in hypotheticals and good fun. Come on, guys. Suck it up, Mike. The Browns need to start Jameis Winston. If there's anybody to put out there, just say, screw it, F it. This season's either going down the gutter or we're going to the Super Bowl. Put Jameis Winston out there. Let him throw the ball 40 times a game and throw, another 30-30 season because Deshaun Watson is terrible.
So we do not advocating for the assassination of Deshaun Watson.
No.
But, JM, one question I have for, what's his name, Andrew Berry, the guy that runs the Browns is,
yes,
very simply, why didn't you just bring back Flacco for whatever he was paid, $7-8 million, whatever it was, because you had the better quarterback on the roster. Now you let him go. Winston's not better than Flacco, especially within that offense. He's probably not better than Flacco, so it just doesn't really make much sense to me.
I'm sure the Browns didn't want the noise.
I know, but how much is he getting paid? How much is he getting paid a year? What is it this year?
So I don't know. This stuff is weird. He's got a base salary of $1.2 million, and it says restructure
What's his cap? What's his
14.9.
cap hit?
$27 million.
So, like, yeah, okay. So you're paying your quarterback a lot of money, obviously, and they have to keep him on the roster, right? He has to be on the roster the next few years before. I think his dead cap would be like $100 million next year, and then 70 the next. So I'm pretty sure they really can't survive without him until 2026 after that season.
Yeah.
But like at some point he does have to get benched. I don't know if you could bench him yet. But if you had Flacco on the roster, yeah, you bench
But
him.
maybe Flacco, like looking back, would it have been good for Flacco to be there? To maybe Deshaun Watson like put a little fire under his ass and be like, "Hey, buddy, your job's not completely safe." I mean, Jameis Winston's no slouch, but
no, but that too, 100%.
Yeah.
You have Stefanski could say this guy ran the offense better than you last year. We went to the playoffs with this guy, so I am not afraid to put him in. And for Stefanski, I'm sure he wanted him back because. You know, Stefanski's coaching for his job. I mean, I think everybody realizes this is a Deshaun Watson problem. And, you know, even though normally when you pay a quarterback, like we're talking about, you know, Doug Peterson would be the scapegoat and Nick Sirianni would be the scapegoat because you paid the quarterback, you can't get rid of him. I think this is a completely different situation because we saw this coach win with another quarterback.
Yeah, Stefanski's done it. I mean, the quarterback is the clear issue here.
Absolutely fascinating, Mike.
Deshaun Watson, wishing you all the best, bro.
Yeah, well, you just wished him dead.
I did not.
I'm kidding. Mike, it was a great day for me. The Mets are in the playoffs. We'll see how they're doing tomorrow.
Dude.
It was a great episode here.
Yankees, game 1, Saturday.
You going?
Yep.
You're going?
Yep.
Gonna
go.
Very nice. It's going to be the O's.
Pumped up.
It's going to be the O's.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the O's.
All right.
Be interesting. You don't want to see Seth Lugo in the playoffs, so
No,
that's for sure.
No.
All right. Make sure you're liking and subscribing on YouTube, rating us and liking us on
Rate us up.
Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate the support on YouTube and, of course, on social media. We will talk to you guys later in the week with the Gambling Show. Hopefully we can continue. Well, not really continue. Get better here with the picks.
Yeah.
It's been a tough stretch for me.
Lions doing good right now. Hopefully they hang on.
Yeah, Jam might his 3-star here. So
2-star.
2-star. Sorry. We'll talk. Who was 3-star?
Packers.
Right.
Don't want to talk about it.
We will talk to you guys later in the week.